Okay, welcome to the fourth episode of my Cosmonaut developer commentary. In this episode, I'll be talking over the chapter Asylum, which was initially made in July of 2018. So, the beginning of this chapter is very slow because I wanted to create an atmosphere, a very creepy, unnerving atmosphere. And initially, this section had a lot of NPCs, a lot of citizens camping out in this hospital. This is where they were taking refuge, and this is where the player would meet them and they would be like, right, let's go to the rocket together. And that's what the mod would have been if I had continued down that path. But what it is now is just an empty map, basically, with some of the stuff's been kept in, but not really. So I had to replace the citizens with something here. So I did that by basically adding a mad person in. I don't know why the rocket's on that screen. It was all part of trying to keep the continuity of the story. So I've put this bright light shining onto the window to highlight this window to the player. And I wanted this reveal. And he obviously lets you through.
We're sitting ducks in here. Or maybe fish in a barrel. Anyway, it's not good. No! No! No!
This map was to contain a lot of stalker combat, and it was kind of, the theme was going to be the stalkers, but I initially found it very difficult to get the stalkers to attack the player. It's more complex, so you only end up meeting like 3 stalkers. So it's basically just combined soldier combat. But the whole light thing, the lights going out, it's good because we had the spotlight shining on it and then it went out, and you know, the TV also stopped working. It's just to create this atmosphere. The first iteration, or one of the iterations, the early iterations, was going to include the companion who'd moved on and gone ahead of the other NPCs, the other citizens who would be in, you know, that room there. And you would be looking through this window and see that the companion going through, and then you'd have to follow them, and obviously you couldn't go through these doors, so you had to go all the way around, and that was kind of the challenge of the level. Obviously now there is no companion, so the level's very, very, very bare. I'm just showing you all of the creepy stuff that's going on. So, coming to this area, there are 2 ways that the player, or there's probably more than 2 ways, but 2 main ways that the players can go about this. So, if the player just walks past that room, which I've tried my best to guide the player into with this thing here, and the door's open so they can clearly see, it's quite clear that you can go in there. If the player doesn't go in there, the player will make it round to the main puzzle with the plug, and upon seeing that plug, the player will know that they have to somehow get it out. I've also put the health vial in there to kind of show that, you know, that's an area that can be accessed, and obviously at this point, the player can't, you know, just grab it. So the player obviously needs to go in here, and this is the interesting way of me introducing the gravity gun. So I said in the second episode I had this kind of interesting way of introducing the crowbar, and now it's the gravity gun's turn. There we go. It's Now this is very interesting. I saw quite a few comments criticizing the fact that I had put the gravity gun in. But when you are a level designer for, and you're making a Half-Life 2 mod, including the gravity gun is the best thing that you can do. It's one of the best things you can do, because it shoots the number of things that you can make and things you can design. It shoots the number of things through the roof, basically. So not including the gravity gun is limiting, and I definitely wanted to include it. So that's why I included it. Does it fit in with the canon and the lore? No, it doesn't. Why was the Metro Cop in the roof with the gravity gun? I don't know. That's not the point. That's not important. The important thing is now we have this tool that we can use, and it's going to be fun because people love to use the gravity gun. It doesn't need to fit into lore, and I do think the people who who care too much about the lore clearly don't care about the gameplay and probably don't know very much about the gameplay. And obviously I've kind of linked the area up, so it's kind of a loop where you can either move through here, or if you make it into here you can go back in and you'll still be able to see the animation. This guy has got collision just because often the gravity gun would fall into him, and it'd be easy for the player to miss. The light shining onto this guy is actually just from the whole door. The door doesn't block the light, but I thought it looked cool, and it kind of, if in a perfect world it would be just shining through that window there, but I kind of wanted to highlight the Metro Cop, and you can go in here and have a look about. The teaching mechanic for the gravity gun is fairly simple. You pick up the very glitchy plug, and then you have to plug it in because obviously the button doesn't work. I changed the position of the plug because someone suggested that I put it above the door instead. It would make more sense rather than have it down here, and I quite liked that suggestion, so I did move it up there. Again, this is one of these puzzles that it's like, well, why is the plug up there? What's that thing there? It doesn't make any sense in real world context, but as a teaching mechanic for the gravity gun, it works very well. He just keeps walking. Even if you shoot him, he'll just keep walking. And yeah, he was kind of there from a very early stage, or a more early stage, where I was going to have more stalkers. But I thought it's just good kind of environment storytelling, the creepiness of it. What's he doing up there? Where's he going? I don't know. And then we make it to the reiteration of the gravity gun. So when you're teaching something, you give them the tool, you teach them how to use it, and then you have a couple of examples of or a couple of scenarios where they have to use it. So here it's fairly simple. I've made it as obvious as possible. All you need to do is grab it, and that's that. You can actually just grab that thing with E and pull it out, or use, I guess it would be. It's not E for everyone. But yeah, it's another way of teaching the gravity gun. So now we move on to the kitchen section, and the way I designed this was a very unconventional way of designing the combat. So you can look through this window and you can see the stalker. He can see me probably at this point if it was not a video game, but I wanted the player to plan ahead and look at this situation and work out what they wanted to do. So I've also made it clear that they can sneak through this section, and one of the hints, well, there's a few hints. So if I walk over here, that thing kind of burst to kind of draw the player's attention. Obviously the red light is also a giveaway. But when you open the door, it opens very slowly, so the player can look and they can see that vent. So I've put the vent facing the player, so when you're here you can see the vent, you can look over here, and they can also see that vent. So the player can just rush in if they so wish, or they can go through the vent. So I'm going to try and go through the vent system and play it this way. Because obviously if I... you'll know what happens if I played it normally. I just shoot them. So I tried to make it clear that where the path is. And then as soon as you get here, he moves over, so it's like it's just a trigger. And here what I did was I made it so you can go that way, but I also broke up the world here. I don't know, sometimes they just randomly, they'll just randomly attack you. It's not ideal. But yeah, so I could have rushed in and taken them on. I could have kept going as quick as possible. It's just an area where you can do an awful lot of things, and some people like that. And then this room's just kind of a tribute to a time long gone, basically. So moving round to the lobby area, there's a few more scary things to see. You can actually go back into the room where the citizen at the start died, and I was going to make it so that when you got here, a stalker would appear behind you and start firing at you, but I never implemented that. One feature that was removed was these doors could open, and there was a wooden board across this side, so the player could break it and go back round again. But the issue I found is there was a few playtesters who got round, broke the board, went through, and didn't realise it was the same area that they'd been in. They thought it was a different area, so they were, a few of them were walking about, and yeah, so I just outright removed it. So now once you're round here, you're round here. Just something to see. And then these props have been placed to draw the player's movement over to this side of the room so they get to the shotgun. So these things, they kind of act in kind of an environmental setting where, yeah, maybe you would place these barriers here where there's a hole in the floor. And I've also, they're also there for my benefit where I can guide the player around here. As soon as the player picks it up, they hear the Combine soldiers. I've placed a few hopper mines there for, because they aren't used that much. Of course, in the last chapter they were used, and I kind of wanted to use them again. But now you have the gravity gun that you can use. The tables were there to basically stop the Combine soldiers from running straight up to you. And I fixed these doors, so now you can close them in combat and feel a bit more safe, and these guys, I don't think, push you. Right. Once again, we've got the good old rocket and shuttle. This time it's a bit more interactive, but it's still reminding the player what the end goal is, or what they're aiming towards. I put the basket here so the player is more inclined to search to left first. And, you know, it's not like there's anything special in here. It's just a toilet, a restroom. But, you know, it's nice to look everywhere. So, in this room, I have tried my best to lead the player over there, although it is quite difficult. But if the player's looking around, you see the rubble and the hole in the wall. Then there's a bit of crouching, because that's good. This is one of these scenarios where you get to decide when you attack them. There was an issue before where if they're talking, the player could run right up to them and they wouldn't attack, because I think I might have removed the trigger. There's a trigger about here, so if the player does run towards them, they will now stop their conversation and fire at you. And if they keep talking, then one of them will eventually go around here and the other one will walk into here. So it's kind of dynamic, but not as much as I would have hoped. But I didn't want to be making like a complete immersive sim with this. You can actually turn this tap on. I don't know if anyone's noticed that, but that's just a nice little Easter egg there. This area is very open because it is designed for very open combat scenario. It's an indoors open combat scenario with a hunter, as we will see in a minute. But I had to make it as wide as possible, and also a loop as well, so I can run round here, I can run round here, all the way around to the other side, and I've got this kind of middle area to so that the player can cut the corner or hide. So I'm going to get the hunter down. And no matter what side you approach the hunter from, he will, you know, he'll fall down. So if I was to come from this side, he'd fall down there. And he's going to pursue me forever, basically. And this is what I was talking about. This room's kind of like a safe room. And these guys will wait at the door until you see them. Now, this is one of the only combat scenarios in which these guys will hunt you down and run right up to you. They're going to just run as close up to you as possible. And the reason for that is because I wanted them to pursue you through the levels like this. I want them to kind of chase you, so if you try and hide, they will find you and they will dispatch of you. And quite a few playtesters liked the fact that it was kind of a bit nerve-wracking. You could hear them, but you couldn't see them. So I think that this area had the required effect. Even if they did run straight up to you, I think it was very necessary in this scenario, and it's one of the only times when that will be the case. And I've tried to make the exit as clear as possible. So now we come to this outdoors area, and I'll speak about it in a minute. I wanted, because I built this area this whole area first, and then I kind of added in the gameplay, which probably isn't the best. But I wanted the player to explore it all, so I put this truck, this tanker lorry, and some boxes to kind of block the path, so when the player comes out, they're going to automatically go to the right. Also, I enabled motion on these dumpsters because previously they all had motion disabled, because I think there was motion disabled on one and I just copied and pasted it. So I wanted the player to explore this whole area. It's not like there's very much to find, but the issue with the continuity of this is I wanted the players to get from the hospital into the mine, and to do that I needed some outland link. And this is what this is. So we're on the very edge of the city here, and it doesn't look very good. If I went back and did this, I'd probably make this area look more like a city. We've got a few buildings there in the citadel, but this is the kind of the beginning of the outland and the end of the city, which was, it's never really been seen so much. So it does look a bit strange, but yeah, it's just what I had to do. And initially there was a combine soldier up there with one of these machine gun turret guns, I don't know what you call them, but it became very difficult to even walk out of the front door, so I removed him for the two combine soldiers there. Now, when you get to this area, you hear the scream of the hunter, and I've made sure to give the player as many tools as possible. What is he doing? Sometimes he's quite good at coming straight to where the player is, so some players are like camped out in here. He will come and surround the building, which is what I intended, but sometimes he doesn't work as well as he could. So yeah, there's barrels and props to throw, and I think you can punt these cars as well, which is always a bonus. And yeah, this whole area was designed for wherever the player might be in that battle. There was initially going to be 2 hunters out here, but it seemed too much or too great of a challenge. And it's not like the final battle. So we've had 2 hunters this level. And then we have the mine shaft over the other side, which is I tried to make it as far away as possible. I put these hoppers here just again to make use of the hoppers, and also the turret, because there isn't many turrets in this mod, and I quite like them. It also kind of gives the impression that the Combine don't want anyone going down here, which kind of tied into a storyline, which got removed. I'll maybe touch on that next episode. In fact, I definitely will be touching on that next episode. But this area was going to be longer when I designed it before I made it, and the player would get to this area and see the companion going down in the elevator, and they had to find a way around, but very quickly I just made it so that the player had to remove these objects blocking the way so they can see where they're going, and then it's just a quick punt with the gravity gun, and here they are. And then this was my first kind of taste of making the mine shaft, which is basically the entire next level. And I really like this area, and there was a lot to find. I don't know if a lot of the stuff's still here, if it's been removed. It's like stuff up there. And then that is it. That's the end of Chapter 4, Asylum. Now, there are some maps and levels that I've made which I really like, and there's ones which I don't like. This is one of these which really disappoints me, because there was going to be a lot of stuff that was taken out, and when I think back to this chapter, it's not as good as it could have been in my mind. But I'm glad I made it, and I'm glad it's here, and a lot of people enjoyed the atmosphere and whatnot. So yeah, I'm glad of that, and that's it. So once again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all next episode.